Follow my leader.
Follow my leader.
Follow on.
Follow on.
The inspection was a follow-on from the review process.
A follow-on product.
Follow through.
Follow through.
The budget has to cover not only the main project, but the follow-through. The budget has to cover not only the main project, but the follow-through.
Follow up.
Follow up.
Preventative treatment and follow-up several weeks later.
Spielberg says he's planning to do a follow-up next year.
A follow-up to their hit album. A follow-up to their hit album. A follow-up study on children and poverty.
Folly.
Folly.
Somerville bitterly regretted his folly at becoming involved.
It would be sheer folly to reduce spending on health education.
The follies of aristocratic society.
Foment.
Foment.
They were accused of fomenting rebellion.
Fond.
Fond.
Joe's quite fond of her, isn't he?
Over the years, we've grown very fond of each other. I'm not overly fond of cooking. I'd grown fond of the place, and it was difficult to leave.
My grandfather was very fond of handing out advice to all my friends.
He gave her a fond look.
As we parted, we said a fond farewell.
Marie still had fond memories of their time together.
They sent him to another school in the fond hope that his behaviour would improve.
A fondness for expensive clothes.
Fondant.
Fondant.
A cake decorated with fondant icing. Fondle.
Fondle.
She fondled his neck.
Fondly.
Fondly.
Some people still fondly believe that modern science can solve all the world's problems.
He turned to see her smiling fondly at him.
Fondue.
Fondue.
Font.
Font.
Food.
Food.
The restaurant serves good food at affordable prices. I love Italian food, especially pasta.
He was told to cut down on salty and fatty foods.
The teacher's advice certainly gave me food for thought. Food bank.
Food bank.
Food chain.
Pollution is affecting many creatures lower down the food chain. Food coupon.
Food coupon.
Food court.
Food court.
Food group.
Food group.
Foodie. Foodie.
Food miles.
Food miles. Reducing food miles would reduce carbon dioxide emissions.
Food poisoning.
Food poisoning.
Food processor.
Food processor.
Food security.
Food security. The impact of population growth on food security.
Food stamp.
Food stamp.
Foodstuff.
Foodstuff.
A shortage of basic foodstuffs.
Fool.
Fool. What a fool she had been to think that he would stay.
Like a fool, I accepted straight away.
You silly old fool.
Sorry I made such a fool of myself last night. I must have been drunk.
I suddenly realized that I was being made a fool of.
Any fool could have seen what would happen.
Catherine was nobody's fool when it came to money.
Jim smashed up my car. More fool you for letting him borrow it. Stop playing the fool. You'll fall.
Even art experts were fooled.
You can't fool me with that old excuse.
Don't be fooled by appearances.
I was fooled into believing their promises. It's no good fooling yourself. He's not coming back.
Look, we're doing our best to fix it. Well, you could have fooled me.
Don't pay any attention to Henry. He's just fooling.
He always used to fool around in class.
Some idiot's been fooling around with the electricity supply.
The boys were out in the yard, just fooling around.
She found out that he'd been fooling around behind her back.
Foolery.
Foolery.
Foolhardy.
Foolhardy.
A foolhardy attempt to capture more territory.
Foolish.
Foolish.
I've never heard anything so foolish in all my life.
It would be foolish to ignore his advice.
I was foolish enough to believe him.
I was young and foolish at the time.
A foolish grin. He'd been made to look foolish.
She foolishly agreed to go with them.
Foolproof.
Foolproof.
A foolproof way of preventing credit card fraud.
Foolscap.
Fool's cap.
Fool's gold.
Fool's gold.
Foosball. Foosball. Foozer.
Foozer.
Foot.
Foot.
My foot hurts.
I had blisters on the soles of my feet.
I dropped a glass earlier, so don't walk around in bare feet. The vet examined the horse's hind feet.
Don't wipe your feet on the carpet.
She stood on the platform, her suitcase at her feet. She stood on the platform, her suitcase at her feet.
He's 6 feet tall, with blonde hair.
Mark was standing just a few feet away from me.
I'd say she's about 5'3".
A 4-foot wall.
15,000 square feet of office space.
He walked to the foot of the stairs. A small cottage at the foot of the hill.
A large wooden trunk at the foot of his bed.
The date is shown at the foot of the page.
It takes about 30 minutes on foot
or 10 minutes by car.
He leapt to his feet and ran outside.
The worst thing about working in the shop is that you're on your feet all day.
As soon as the bell rang, the class were on their feet and out of the door.
We'll soon have you on your feet again.
I need to get back on my feet again and forget all this.
The doctor told me to stay off my feet for a few days.
They were blown off their feet by the force of the explosion.
Before Christmas, most salespeople are rushed off their feet. She swore she would never set foot in his house again. I hate summer vacation. The kids are under my feet all day long.
You'll just have to put your foot down and tell him he can't stay out on school nights.
I've really put my foot in it this time. I didn't realize that was her husband. I've really put my foot in it this time. I didn't realize that was her husband. I've really put my foot in it this time. I didn't realize that was her husband.
Simon and I got off on the wrong foot, but we're good friends now.
It was a great result, but we have to keep our feet firmly on the ground.
Don't worry about Nina. She always falls on her feet.
All Paris was at his feet.
£50 my foot. It'll cost £200 at least.
If you keep fooling around with that gun, you'll be leaving this camp feet first.
He ordered drinks and then left me to foot the bill.
Footage.
Footage.
Old footage from the First World War.
Football.
Football.
Which football team do you support?
Kids playing football in the street. My dad took me to watch my first football match.
A football club.
A group of Scottish football fans.
College football games.
A football field. He played football in high school.
Footballer.
Footballer.
Footballing.
Footballing. It was the high point of his footballing career.
Football pools.
Football pools.
Footbridge.
Footbridge.
Foot dragging. Foot dragging.
Footbridge.
Foot dragging.
Footer.
Footer.
Footfall.
Footfall.
Heavy footfalls.
Footfault.
Footfault.
Foothill.
Foothill.
The foothills of the Himalayas. The foothills of the Himalayas.
Foothold.
Foothold.
Extreme right-wing parties gained a foothold in the latest European elections. Extreme right-wing parties gained a foothold in the latest European elections.
Footy.
Footy.
Footing.
Footing.
He wanted to put their relationship on a permanent footing.
The firm started the new year on a stronger financial footing.
The new law puts women on an equal legal footing with men.
Many of the old polytechnics are now on the same footing as universities.
They managed to get the business onto a more secure footing.
The whole country was on a war footing. Seb struggled to keep his footing on the slippery path.
The girl lost her footing and fell about 150 feet.
Footlights.
Footlights.
Footlocker.
Footlocker.
Footloose.
Footloose.
Footloose students traveling around Europe.
When the kids leave home, you'll be footloose and fancy-free.
Footman.
Footman.
Footnote.
Footnote.
There was an interesting footnote to the story.
Footpath.
Footpath.
Footplate.
Footplate.
Footprint.
Footprint.
We followed the footprints of a deer in the snow.
PCs with a 50% smaller footprint than other models.
Answer these questions to calculate your business's environmental footprint.
Footrest.
Footrest.
Footsie.
Footsie.
Politicians playing footsie with each other.
Footsore.
Footsore.
Footstep.
Footstep.
He heard someone's footsteps in the hall.
Footstool.
Footstool.
Footwear.
Footwear.
Outdoor footwear.
Footwork.
Footwork.
The England keeper revealed some fancy footwork in the victory over Nottingham Forest. The England keeper revealed some fancy footwork in the victory over Nottingham Forest.
It took a bit of deft footwork to get them to agree. It took a bit of deft footwork to get them to agree.
Footy.
Footy.
Footy fans.
Fop.
Fop.
For.
For.
I've got a present for you. Someone left a message for Vicky.
An English course for foreign students.
We need a new battery for the radio.
These chairs are for the office.
I looked after the kids for them.
Let me carry that bag for you.
The doctor knew that there was nothing he could do for her. Charles died fighting for his country.
What can I do for you?
A knife for cutting bread.
What did you do that for?
I bought him a watch for his birthday.
The documents prepared for his defence.
Are you waiting for the bus?
The qualifications necessary for a career in broadcasting.
Mother was too ill to get up for dinner.
I paid $3 for a ticket.
For further details, write to this address. Let's go for a walk. Bake the cake for 40 minutes. We had been talking for a good half hour. He's been off work for a while. We walked for miles. Factories stretch for quite a way along the canal.
I've invited them for 9 o'clock.
A meeting was arranged for 18th of May.
I set off for work.
The train for Manchester.
A few days later, she would be leaving for New York.
A cheque for £100.
The diamond was insured for $2,000. If for any reason you cannot attend, please inform us. We could hardly see for the mist.
You'll feel better for a break.
A reward for making good progress.
Campbell was arrested for dangerous driving.
I'm sure she's the ideal person for the job.
The questions on this paper are too difficult for 10-year-olds.
Are you all right for money?
Fortunately for him, he can swim.
I came away feeling sorry for poor old George. My deep love for him still remains. They show no respect for authority.
We had pasta for lunch.
I've worked for the BBC ever since I left university.
Deborah used to play for the A-team. He writes for a weekly paper. We've studied the arguments for and against nuclear energy. How many people voted for the proposal?
3 cheers for the captain.
I'm all for giving people more freedom.
What's the French word for happy? Red is for danger.
She looks young for her age.
It's cold for July.
Paisley claims to speak for the majority of local people.
It's unusual for Donald to be so bad-tempered. There is an urgent need for someone to tackle this problem. Here is a chance for everyone to learn new skills. There's nothing worse than for a parent to ill-treat a child. It was too far for her to walk in high-heeled shoes.
For each mistake, you'll lose half a point.
For every 3 people who agree, you'll find 5 who don't.
City life is not for me.
This book is not for everyone.
It's not for me to tell you what to do. It will be for you to decide what action you should take.
If it hadn't been for you, I should have drowned.
I know it's outrageous, but that's Melissa for you. Well, there's gratitude for you. Here am I, trying to help, and you tell me not to interfere. Well, there's gratitude for you. Here am I, trying to help, and you tell me not to interfere. You'll be in for it if she finds out what you've done.
I cannot tell whether she is old or young, for I have never seen her.
He found it increasingly difficult to read, for his eyesight was beginning to fail.
Forage.
Forage.
People are being forced to forage for food and fuel.
In the summer, the goats forage freely.
She foraged around in her purse and produced her ticket.
Foray.
Foray.
It will be my first foray into local government.
Wright is about to make his first foray into the music business.
Their nightly forays into enemy territory.
We make regular forays to France to buy wine.
Forbade. Forbear.
He decided to forbear from interfering. He decided to forbear from interfering.
Clara forbore to mention his name.
Forbearance.
Forbearance.
Forbearing.
Forbearing.
Forbid.
Forbid.
He was forbidden to leave the house as a punishment. Women are forbidden from going out without a veil.
The law strictly forbids racial or sexual discrimination.
Supposing I had an accident. God forbid.
Lack of space forbids listing the names of all those who contributed. Lack of space forbids listing the names of all those who contributed. Lack of space forbids listing the names of all those who contributed.
Forbidden.
It is forbidden to smoke at school.
Alcohol is strictly forbidden in Saudi Arabia. The Great Mosque is forbidden to Christians.
Sex was always a forbidden topic.
Forbidden fruit is always more attractive. Forbidding.
Forbidding.
We sailed past the island's rather dark and forbidding cliffs. His face was forbidding, even hostile.
Forbore. Forbore. Forborn. Forborn.
Force.
Force.
The riots were suppressed by government forces. He strengthened US forces in the Gulf.
A plan to disarm the rebel forces.
Both her sons are in the forces.
Short-range nuclear forces.
Peace cannot be imposed by force.
The UN will allow the use of force against aircraft violating the zone.
The police used force to overpower the demonstrators.
In the end, he had to be thrown out of the house by force.
They kicked the door down using sheer brute force.
The force of the explosion blew out all the windows.
He raised his hand and struck her with terrifying force.
The force of gravity.
Powerful natural forces such as earthquakes, floods, and drought.
The forces of nature. The company's sales force.
The quality of the teaching force.
Betty Coward was the driving force behind the project.
Healthy competition is a force for innovation.
He's a quick and decisive player, a force to be reckoned with. The fall in prices was due to forces beyond their control.
Even after 30 years, the play has lost none of its force. The force of his personality.
Local schools have joined forces with each other to share facilities.
The trade embargo has been in force for a year.
Villagers turned out in force to protest about the new road.
Parking restrictions in the town centre came into force last month.
I get up at 6 o'clock every day out of force of habit.
The battle against the forces of evil.
Government troops have forced the rebels to surrender.
Due to the high cost of borrowing, many companies have been forced to close.
I had to force myself to get up this morning.
Women who are forced into arranged marriages.
Bad health forced him into taking early retirement.
Strong winds forced the ship off course. Firemen tried to enter the building, but were forced back by the flames.
She tried to keep the door shut, but the man forced it open.
The doctor forced his way through the crowd.
Demonstrators forced their way past.
The unfortunate events that forced his resignation.
We need to force the pace on alternative energy policies.
The effect will be to increase unemployment and force down wages.
I forced the lock on the cupboard to see what was inside.
Polly decided to force the issue by demanding an explanation.
They're reluctant to sell the house yet, but the right offer could force their hand.
Janet forced back her tears.
I forced down a piece of stale bread.
The hijacked plane was forced down by military jets.
It's no good trying to force a diet on someone.
People who try to force their own views on you.
I wasn't going to tell Matt, but he forced it out of me.